Every reaction is a gift to your enemy. Let that sentence sink in. Imagine every time you snapped back at someone who insulted you, every time you raised your voice in anger, every time you cried because of someone's cruelty, you were giving them exactly what they wanted. Not just a small victory, but the kind of psychological triumph that feeds their ego and validates their brokenness. They wanted control, and with your reaction, you handed it to them like a wrapped present. This is the trap most of us live in without realizing it. We move through life reacting to disrespect, to betrayal, to subtle jabs and outright attacks. We explain ourselves to people determined not to listen. We defend ourselves against accusations rooted in lies. We get pulled into emotional tug-of-war battles that drain us, leaving us wondering afterward, why did I let them get to me again? The cycle is familiar. Someone strikes. We feel the sting. Instead of pausing, we lash out. And the moment we do, we become part of their script. Their chaos now has a co-star, and that co-star is us. This is why so many people seem to thrive on drama, because drama needs an audience and we keep showing up to play our part. But what if there was another way? What if you could step out of that endless loop, reclaim your peace and flip the entire dynamic so that your silence became more powerful than their attack? This is not a fantasy. It's a discipline. And it was outlined over 2,000 years ago by a philosopher you may never have heard of, but whose insights feel more relevant today than ever. Chrysippus, one of the early architects of Stoicism. Chrysippus understood something terrifying about human nature. He saw that when people lash out, it is rarely about the target in front of them. Instead, they are projecting what he called the shadow, the parts of themselves they cannot accept. Their shame, their fear, their anger, their inadequacy. Rather than face that darkness, they hurl it outward, making someone else the villain so they can avoid the harder task of confronting themselves. And here's the cruel trick. When you respond emotionally, you don't just engage with them. You validate their projection. You confirm their story. You let their shadow latch onto you, making their pain your problem. That's how you end up exhausted by conflicts you never asked for. That's how you get trapped in toxic dynamics that feel impossible to escape. This is why Stoicism is not just philosophy. It's survival. It's the art of refusing to hand over your peace as a gift to those who haven't earned it. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The same truth guided Epictetus, who taught that no one can harm your soul unless you allow it. And long before them, Chrysippus exposed the mechanics of projection and reaction that still govern human conflict today. If you look back on your life, you'll likely find dozens of moments where you gave away your power without realizing it. The friend who kept provoking you just to see you lose your cool. The colleague who baited you into an argument during a meeting. The family member who guilt-tripped you until you exploded. In each case, the real damage wasn't in their words or actions. It was in the way they pulled you into their storm and made you perform a role in their drama. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if you recognized that their attack wasn't about you at all, but about them? What if you stepped out of the story altogether, leaving them to wrestle with their own shadow, while you remained calm, composed, and free? That's where your true strength lives. That's where power shifts back into your hands. This journey isn't about becoming numb or passive. It's about becoming intentional. It's about choosing clarity over chaos, sovereignty over slavery, mastery over manipulation. The Stoics didn't advocate cold indifference. They practiced conscious control. They knew that real strength is not in domination of others, but in domination of the self. And that's exactly what we are going to explore in this video. How to stop giving your enemies the gift of your reaction, how to recognize the mind games being played, and how to walk away, not weaker, but untouchable. If you want to master yourself instead of being mastered by others, stay with me and join True Stoic Way. Because once you understand the truths Chrysippus uncovered, you will never see conflict, or your own power, the same way again. When someone lashes out at you, through an insult, a cutting remark, or a cold silence, it's natural to think, why me? What did I do? But here's the truth most people never see. It was never really about you. It was about them, about the storm they carry inside, about the parts of themselves they despise but refuse to face. In Stoic thought, Chrysippus called this the shadow, the hidden aspects of the self that remain buried, denied, or hated. Psychology today confirms what the Stoics saw centuries ago. We project onto others what we cannot accept in ourselves. If I loathe my own insecurity, I may accuse you of being weak. If I feel ashamed of my past, I may mock your mistakes to distract from mine. If I'm drowning in jealousy, I may criticize your success to soothe my envy. Projection is a defense mechanism, a way of unloading inner pain by disguising it as someone else's flaw. Think about it this way. Every human being carries an internal mirror. When someone looks at you, they are not just seeing you, they are seeing their own reflection superimposed upon you. When their reflection is warped by fear, shame, or resentment, they project that distortion onto you. You become the scapegoat for the battle they are too afraid to fight within. This is why Epictetus was right when he said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." What others throw at us is not an objective truth. It's their judgment, shaped by their inner wounds. And when you internalize their projection, when you start believing their accusations or defending yourself against their shadows, you allow their distorted judgment to invade your peace. Let's ground this in real life. Family. Imagine a parent who never pursued their own dreams. When they see their child striving boldly, they might criticize, "You're unrealistic, you'll fail." But what they're really saying is, "I'm afraid I failed myself, and I can't bear to watch you succeed where I didn't." Workplace. A colleague feels overlooked and insecure. In meetings, they interrupt you, belittle your ideas, or twist your words. It feels personal, but it's not. You are simply triggering their insecurity. They attack to protect themselves from the terror of being invisible. Friendships. Sometimes a friend distances themselves or starts throwing passive-aggressive remarks. You wonder what you did wrong, but often it's envy or shame at play. Your growth makes them uncomfortable with their stagnation, and instead of celebrating you, they resent you. In every case, the attack feels sharp, but the wound is theirs. You are merely the mirror. The danger arises when you don't see the projection for what it is. If you take their words as truth, you step into the role they've cast for you. Their shadow becomes your burden, and worse, your reaction fuels their story. They insult you, you defend yourself. Now they've succeeded. They've made you carry the shame they couldn't face. This is why awareness is liberation. The moment you recognize projection, the spell breaks. Suddenly, you see clearly, this is not about me, this is about them. That clarity allows you to step out of their drama instead of being trapped inside it. But let's be honest, this is not easy. Everything in you will want to react, to prove them wrong, to shout back, "That's not who I am." Yet Stoicism calls us to a higher strength, the strength of refusing to become what someone else projects onto us. Chrysippus and Epictetus both understood that the real battlefield is not out there, but in here. Your mind is the fortress, and the only way it falls is if you open the gate from the inside. So how do you practice this? Start with awareness. The next time someone attacks you, pause and ask, what does this reveal about them, not me? Notice the insecurity behind their arrogance, the pain behind their cruelty, the fear behind their anger. See the shadow for what it is, a reflection of their inner struggle. When you do this consistently, something shifts. Their words no longer penetrate as deeply. Their judgments lose power. You stop dancing in their drama and start standing in your own clarity. And nothing unsettles those who thrive on control more than someone who refuses to play their game. Because here's the paradox. When you don't react, you hold up the mirror to them. They are left face to face with the very shadow they were trying to throw onto you. And most people can't bear that. Your calm becomes their confrontation. Your silence becomes their teacher. This is not weakness, it's wisdom. And it's the beginning of true freedom. Recognizing projection is the first step to breaking free. Share this if you've experienced it. Here's a truth that cuts deeper than most of us like to admit. When someone hurts you, they don't actually want your apology, your explanation, or even your understanding. What they crave, whether consciously or unconsciously, is your reaction. Think about it. The insult wasn't designed to open a conversation. The silent treatment wasn't meant to create understanding. The passive-aggressive jab wasn't about solving a problem. Each move was a provocation, bait tossed into the water. And the real prize? Watching you bite. Watching you lose composure. Watching you hand over your power through anger, frustration, or tears. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Chrysippus described the cycle clearly. People provoke because they are desperate to confirm their inner world. When you react emotionally, you become proof that their distorted worldview is real. If they believe people are cruel, your angry response validates it. If they believe no one listens, your defensiveness makes them feel right. If they believe they are victims, your reaction cements the story. That's why your reaction is their weapon. Without it, they are left powerless. With it, they feel like they've won. Childhood roots. Unseen, unloved, unsafe. Why does it hurt so much when people provoke us? Why can a single insult cut deeper than logic says it should? Modern psychology gives us a window here, and the Stoics, though they lived long before neuroscience, understood the principle. When we are children, 3 wounds are especially common. Feeling unseen, unloved, or unsafe. A child ignored by a parent feels invisible. A child who is criticized relentlessly feels unworthy of love. A child in a chaotic environment feels unsafe, never sure when the next storm will strike. These wounds don't disappear with age. They sink into the unconscious, stored like dormant seeds. Then, years later, someone presses the right button. A coworker dismisses your idea in a meeting. Suddenly, you are not just an adult at work. You are the child who felt unseen. A partner mocks your efforts. You don't just hear their words. You hear the echo of unloved. A stranger humiliates you in public. You don't just feel embarrassed. You feel unsafe. The body doesn't always distinguish between past and present. The old pain reawakens, and you react as though the original wound just happened. That's why the reaction feels overwhelming, disproportionate, uncontrollable. You're not just reacting to this moment. You're reacting to every moment like it that came before. Modern neuroscience explains this phenomenon. Emotional memories are stored in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. Unlike logical memories, these emotional imprints don't fade with time. When a situation resembles a past wound, the amygdala lights up, sending signals of danger, fear, or shame, even if the present moment isn't truly threatening. This is why people say they overreact. In truth, they're not overreacting at all. They're reacting to the accumulated weight of their history. Their nervous system is firing as though survival is at stake, and this is precisely where the cycle becomes a trap. The person provoking you knows nothing about your childhood wounds or neural pathways. They simply toss out bait, but because of how the brain works, you grab it. And the moment you do, you hand them control. They push a button and you dance. They know it and it makes them feel powerful. The Stoics offered a radical solution that modern psychology continues to echo. The power lies not in suppressing emotion, but in creating space. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Chrysippus all understood this. There is a gap, however brief, between what happens to you and how you respond. That gap is where your freedom lives. Most of us collapse the two. Someone insults us, we lash back. Someone ignores us, we demand attention. Someone disrespects us, we defend ourselves. But the Stoic discipline is to pause, to notice the rising wave of emotion without immediately riding it, to hold space between stimulus and reaction long enough to ask, is this really about me, or is it about them? In that pause, you take back control. You no longer react from the wounded child. You respond as the conscious adult. You choose clarity instead of compulsion. And in that choice, the other person loses their weapon. How do you make this practical? Try this exercise the next time someone provokes you. 1. Pause. When you feel the trigger, don't rush to respond, just stop. Even a few seconds can shift the outcome. 2. Breathe. Take one deep breath. It interrupts the surge of adrenaline and buys your mind a moment of clarity. Re-observe. Ask yourself, whose wound is this? Mine or theirs? If it's theirs, hand it back. If it awakens something old in you, notice it without judgment. You are not obligated to carry it forward. This isn't about bottling up feelings or pretending you don't care. It's about regaining sovereignty over your own mind. Your reaction is yours to give or withhold. Don't let others weaponize it against you. When you practice this, you'll notice a powerful shift. People who once thrived on your emotional outbursts become unsettled. Their tactics lose effectiveness. They poke, but you don't flinch. They provoke, but you don't bite. And suddenly, the power dynamic changes. The one who once controlled you through your reactions now finds themselves powerless in the face of your stillness. Your silence becomes the mirror that forces them to confront themselves. And often that's the one thing they cannot bear. If this insight helps you pause, comment yes below. Have you ever noticed that truly happy people rarely start fights? They don't waste their time tearing others down, spreading rumors, or stirring conflict. Why? Because happiness has no need for victims. Happiness is self-sustaining. But pain is different. Pain is hungry. Pain seeks company. Pain looks for someone to drag into its storm so it doesn't have to suffer alone. This is why the people who come after you, who needle you with subtle jabs or outright hostility, are often the ones most wounded inside. Their attacks aren't about you at all. They're about validating their own suffering. If they believe the world is cruel, they will provoke cruelty in you just to prove themselves right. If they believe no one cares, they'll push until you explode, then point and say, "See? No one ever understands me." What they really want is for you to play a role in their drama. They've already written the script. They are the victim, the misunderstood, the betrayed, and they need someone to play the villain. When you react, you accept the role. You give life to their story. Take Marcus, for example. He worked with a colleague named Jenna, who constantly criticized him during meetings. She had a talent for twisting his words into something they weren't, for offering backhanded compliments that cut deeper than outright insults. At first, Marcus snapped back. He defended himself, argued, tried to set the record straight. But every time he did, Jenna's smile grew. She seemed energized by his frustration. What Marcus didn't see at the time was that Jenna wasn't trying to win an argument. She was trying to recruit him into her reality. In her world, people were always against her. No one ever listened. She was always misunderstood. To keep that worldview alive, she needed Marcus to play the antagonist. His reaction was her proof. His frustration confirmed her story. The more he fought, the stronger her narrative became. Until one day, Marcus remembered the Stoic principle. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. These words from Seneca struck him differently. He realized that reacting in the heat of the moment only tied him deeper to Jenna's story. So instead of snapping back, he paused. He delayed. He answered briefly, calmly, without heat. He gave her nothing to feed on. Something remarkable happened. Jenna didn't stop trying. She still threw her barbs, but the energy was gone. Her tactics no longer landed. Without Marcus playing the villain, her victim script began to collapse. Marcus wasn't trapped anymore. He had stepped out of the play. People in pain need an audience. They can't carry the weight of their suffering alone, so they spread it around, often unconsciously. They provoke because they want confirmation. I'm right. The world is against me. By reacting, you give them that confirmation. You're not just responding, you're participating in their self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why conflicts with certain people feel so draining. It's not about the issue at hand. It's about the role you've been assigned without realizing it. And once you're in the role, they won't let you leave easily, because without you, their story begins to fall apart. The first step is awareness. Ask yourself, do I feel like I'm constantly defending myself around this person? If so, you may have been cast as the villain. Does the conflict feel repetitive, as if no resolution ever sticks? That's because the goal isn't resolution, it's performance. Do I leave interactions feeling drained, guilty, or ashamed even when I did nothing wrong? That's the weight of carrying someone else's story. When you notice these signs, pause. Remember Seneca. Delay is your shield. Delay breaks the cycle. Delay denies them the emotional fuel they need to keep their script alive. Instead of defending, explain less. Instead of reacting, breathe. Instead of engaging, step back. You don't have to play the part they've written for you. You can choose silence, calm, or even disengagement. Stoicism doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means refusing to be controlled by their chaos. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics understood that when you withdraw from someone's emotional play, you're not losing. You're reclaiming. You're no longer a character in their drama. You're the author of your own. Happy people don't drag others into battles because they don't need to. They live in peace, and they let others live there too. The ones who try to pull you in, they're revealing their pain, not your weakness. Don't mistake the two. Have you seen someone thrive on chaos? Share your story. Every conflict, every drama, every toxic cycle has one essential ingredient: your energy. Without it, the fire dies. Without it, the drama collapses. Without it, the other person is left with only themselves to face. The Stoics, and Chrysippus in particular, understood this deeply. He called it withdrawing the projection. In other words, refusing to carry what someone else has thrown at you. When they insult, accuse, or manipulate, they are trying to project their pain onto you. If you accept it and react, you give their projection life. But when you don't, when you withdraw your energy, you starve the projection. You deny it a host. Silence is not emptiness, it is strength. Non-reaction is not weakness, it is mastery. In a world where everyone rushes to defend, explain, and prove themselves, silence is a weapon they cannot touch. Think of how unnerving it is when you try to provoke someone and they simply don't bite. You expect fire, but get calm. You expect defense, but get stillness. You expect chaos, but meet a wall of peace. That moment is destabilizing because it breaks the cycle. Your silence denies them the mirror they need. It forces them to sit with the very shadow they were trying to escape. Most people can't handle that. They need you to play along. When you don't, their entire strategy collapses. Every time you're triggered, there's a split second where two paths open. The first is the familiar one, unconscious reaction. This is the quick retort, the raised voice, the heated defense. It feels automatic because it is. Your nervous system is replaying old scripts from the past. The second path is harder, but infinitely more powerful. Conscious choice. This is the pause, the breath, the decision not to engage. It doesn't mean you don't feel the fire. It means you don't feed it. It means you let the moment pass without stepping into it. That split second, the turning point, is where your life changes. Because the second you realize you don't have to react, you reclaim authorship over your story. You stop being a character in their drama and return to being the author of your own. Here's a practice you can try the next time someone provokes you. 1. Notice the trigger. Pay attention to the first rush of emotion, that heat rising in your chest, that tightness in your stomach. That's the signal. 2. Pause. Don't move. Don't speak. Just freeze the moment for a breath. 3. Withdraw. Instead of defending, explaining, or retaliating, say nothing, or respond with calm, neutral words that don't fuel the fire. 4. Observe. Watch what happens. See how the other person reacts when you don't give them the energy they expect. Notice how your own body begins to calm once the initial storm passes. Do this once, just once, and you'll feel the power. You'll realize that silence isn't passive, it's active. It flips the power dynamic completely. Drama thrives on participation. When you stop participating, the loop ends. Imagine two people in a tug of war. The moment one lets go of the rope, the game is over. No matter how hard the other pulls, there's nothing left to resist. That's what withdrawing your energy feels like. The Stoics lived this discipline daily. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul." In modern terms, that means you don't have to react to every provocation. You don't have to carry every projection. You don't have to waste energy on battles that are not yours. When you practice withdrawing your energy, something liberating happens. You realize you don't need to win every argument. You don't need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to spend your peace like loose change every time someone demands it. Instead, you walk away lighter. You stop being bait. You stop being the mirror for their shadow. And you step into a kind of sovereignty that no one can steal. If you've tried silence as power, let us know in the comments. Every provocation, every insult, every emotional storm comes down to a single moment, a fraction of a second most people never even notice. It's the space between stimulus and response. In that breath, that sliver of awareness, lies your freedom. Chrysippus called it the transcendent function, the point where your conscious mind meets the unconscious patterns buried deep inside. Most people never touch this space because they live on autopilot. Someone presses their buttons, and before they know it, the words are out, the anger has flared, the reaction has escaped. They think they're choosing, but they're not. They're reliving. They're replaying old wounds in real time. Take Tasha, for example. For years, she felt trapped in a cycle of proving herself. As a child, she had a controlling parent who constantly made her feel like she wasn't enough. Later in life, this wound resurfaced in friendships and relationships. Whenever someone challenged her, she reacted instantly, explaining, defending, even begging to be understood. The result? Exhaustion. No matter how much she explained, nothing changed. People still twisted her words, dismissed her efforts, or made her feel like she was too much. Then, one day something clicked. In the middle of an argument with a partner, she stopped mid-sentence. She realized she was performing the same script she had always performed, fighting to be seen by someone who had no intention of seeing her. In that pause, she found the space. She chose silence. Not because she had no answer, but because she no longer owed one. That was her turning point. For the first time, she wasn't reacting from the wounded child within her. She was responding from self-respect. That silence didn't mean defeat. It meant freedom. Here's the paradox Chrysippus warned about. What you resist persists. When someone provokes you and you fight back, arguing, defending, justifying, you think you're resisting their attack. But in reality, you're reinforcing it. Your defense validates their accusation. Your explanation breathes life into their distortion. You're still playing the game, just from the losing side. Resistance keeps you stuck in the very cycle you're trying to escape. The harder you fight, the deeper the hook sinks. That's why so many people feel drained after defending themselves. They've been dragged into a play they never auditioned for, yet somehow ended up starring in. The only way out is not resistance but release. To step out of the role entirely. To say, I refuse to play this part. That's what Tasha discovered in her pause. That's what every Stoic has practiced for centuries. Centuries after Chrysippus, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl echoed the same truth. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Frankl had endured one of the darkest human experiences imaginable, yet he recognized that even when everything else is stripped away, one freedom always remains, the freedom to choose your response. When you pause, you reclaim that freedom. You're no longer a puppet pulled by invisible strings of past wounds. You're no longer at the mercy of someone else's projection. You're no longer enslaved by unconscious programming. You are awake. You are sovereign. 1. Notice the urge. Pay attention to the heat rising when someone provokes you. That's your signal. 2. Pause deliberately. Even 2 seconds can shift everything. Count 1, 2 before saying a word. 3. Breathe. Oxygen calms the nervous system and gives your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, time to catch up. 4. Choose. Instead of the automatic script, ask, what would the strongest version of me do right now? At first, this practice feels awkward, even impossible. But with repetition, it becomes your new normal. And when it does, people will notice. They will see the stillness in you and realize they can't hook you like before. That moment of space is not emptiness. It is fullness. It contains every possibility. Silence, calm, clarity, wisdom. And the more you practice stepping into it, the more you realize you don't have to be enslaved by your reactions. The storm will come. People will provoke. Shadows will be projected. But you will remain unshaken. Not because you're cold or numb, but because you've discovered the freedom that lies in the pause. If you felt this truth, subscribe to keep growing with us. One of the most seductive traps in human conflict is the urge to explain yourself. Someone twists your words, accuses you unfairly, or mocks your intentions, and instantly you feel that fire. If I just explain clearly enough, they'll understand. They'll stop. But here's the harsh reality. The moment you start justifying yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you've already lost. You've stepped into their frame. You're playing by rules designed for you to fail. Psychologists call this dynamic a trauma bond. It forms through cycles of pain and resolution, conflict and connection. The person who wounds you also dangles the hope of repair. They provoke you, then give just enough attention to keep you hooked. You find yourself pleading, arguing, defending, not because you trust them, but because they've hijacked your emotional system. Over time, you become attached to the very person causing your distress, not through love, but through repetition. Every explanation you give, every justification you offer, reinforces the bond. It ties you to them, making their opinion feel heavier than it really is. When you explain yourself to someone who has no interest in seeing the truth, you do three things. 1. You validate their accusation. By responding, you signal that their distortion is worth your energy. 2. You reinforce their control. They set the frame, and you step inside it. Now you're acting out their script. 3. You drain yourself. Every explanation costs energy you could have used to grow, to heal, to move forward. This is why conflicts with manipulators feel endless. You keep defending, hoping for fairness, but fairness was never their goal. Their goal is control, and every word you offer tightens their grip. The way out isn't fighting harder, it's seeing clearer. The Stoics practiced psychological objectivity, the ability to step back and ask, what does this behavior reveal about them? When you shift the focus from why are they doing this to me, to what does this say about their inner world, the entire dynamic changes. Their insults stop feeling like mirrors of your worth. You stop carrying their shadow as your burden. Instead, you see their behavior for what it is, a projection of their pain, their fear, their limitations. This doesn't make their actions right, but it frees you from making them personal. And that freedom is the first step to reclaiming your power. The next time you feel cornered into explaining yourself, pause and ask, am I explaining to be understood, or am I explaining because I'm afraid they might be right? Does this person truly want clarity, or are they committed to distortion? What does their behavior reveal about them, not me? Answer honestly. If the explanation isn't coming from strength, but from doubt or fear, stop. Step back. Let your silence speak louder than your words. The Stoics taught that true confidence doesn't argue. It doesn't need to. Real strength comes from self-respect, from knowing your worth without borrowing anyone else's opinion. Once you validate yourself, you no longer chase validation from those determined to deny it. As Chrysippus warned, the most terrifying freedom is accepting yourself completely, because once you do, no one can manipulate you with their approval or rejection. Stop justifying. Start living. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't shout, slam doors, or make dramatic exits. True strength is quiet, grounded, immovable, like a mountain standing unshaken while storms rage around it. In the chaos of conflict, most people collapse into what the Stoics would call the reactive self. But the wise, the disciplined, the free, they live as the aware self. The reactive self is ruled by old wounds and unchecked emotions. When provoked, it lashes out instantly. It feels every insult as an attack on identity, every criticism as proof of failure. The reactive self doesn't pause to question whether the provocation is about them. It simply reacts, handing away control. The aware self, on the other hand, doesn't deny feelings but chooses how to use them. When provoked, it notices the rising anger, but doesn't let it dictate action. It recognizes that most attacks are reflections of the attacker, not truths about the self. The aware self remains calm, deliberate, sovereign. This difference defines whether you live enslaved by the chaos of others or free within your own clarity. The Stoics called this sovereignty over the self, mastery of your own mind and emotions. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Emotional sovereignty doesn't mean you never feel hurt. It means you don't hand your peace over to anyone who demands it. It means refusing to let your emotional state be dictated by someone else's shadow. It means choosing to remain the author of your own story, no matter how many people try to cast you in theirs. Practicing this sovereignty requires 3 steps. 1. Awareness. Notice when you're being pulled into someone else's chaos. 2. Detachment. Remember, their behavior reveals them, not you. 3. Choice. Decide consciously how you want to respond, or whether to respond at all. Consider Sarah. She had a coworker who thrived on drama, constantly twisting her words and baiting her in front of others. In the past, Sarah would snap back, determined to prove herself right. But every time, the coworker looked composed while Sarah appeared rattled. One day, Sarah tried a different approach. When the coworker interrupted with a cutting remark, Sarah paused. She let the silence stretch, then calmly continued her point without engaging in the jab. No anger, no defense, just composure. Something shifted in the room. The coworker looked unsettled, even frustrated. Without Sarah's reaction, there was no energy to feed on, no fire to grow. Instead of looking strong, the provocateur looked petty. Sarah, by holding steady, changed the entire dynamic. This is the power of sovereignty. When you refuse to join the storm loses its grip. Life will never be free of conflict. People will project, provoke, and try to pull you into their dramas. But the Stoics teach us that peace isn't found by changing others. It's found by mastering ourselves. When you live as the reactive self, your peace is fragile. Every insult can shatter it. Every criticism can steal it. But when you live as the aware self, your peace is untouchable. You protect it as sacred. You hold it as the foundation of your life. And no one, not critic, manipulator, or enemy, can take it unless you give it away. Protect your peace, it's sacred. Join True Stoic Way to keep mastering it. We've traveled far in this journey, uncovering truths the Stoics saw centuries ago, and that psychology is only now beginning to explain. Let's pause and bring it all together. Principle 1. When others hurt you, they are reflecting themselves. Their insults, their cruelty, their coldness. It isn't about you. It's about the shadow they cannot face within. Principle 2. Your reaction is their weapon. They crave it, feed on it, and use it to confirm their distorted story of the world. Principle 3. Happiness does not attack. Only pain needs victims. The people who thrive on chaos reveal their wounds by trying to drag you into their storm. Principle 4. You break the cycle by withdrawing your energy. Your silence, your calm, your refusal to engage. That is what starves the fire. Principle 5. Freedom lives in the pause. Between stimulus and response lies your choice, and in that choice lies your power. Principle 6. Justifying is a trap. The more you explain, the more you validate their distortion. Step out of their frame. See their behavior as a mirror of them, not you. Principle 7. True strength is holding steady in another's storm. To live as the aware self, not the reactive self. To guard your peace as sacred and untouchable. What ties these 7 principles together is a single truth. Victory is not found in revenge. It's not in shouting louder, proving yourself right, or striking back harder. The greatest victory is mastery of the self. When you no longer dance to the tune of provocation, when you can meet insult with calm, when you can walk away untouchable, you win. Not because you destroyed the other person, but because you refuse to let them destroy you. Revenge might satisfy for a moment. Mastery satisfies for a lifetime. This is why I built True Stoic Way, to remind you that you don't have to live as a prisoner of your reactions. You don't have to give away your peace to anyone who demands it. You can learn to stand unshaken, to live with clarity, to embody strength that no storm can steal. So if these truths spoke to you, if something inside you shifted, then take action. Like, share, and subscribe to True Stoic Way. Not just for me, but for yourself, for the daily reminder that you are stronger than your emotions, greater than your wounds, and freer than you've been told. In the comments, write one thing you're walking away from today that no longer deserves your reaction. Your insight may be the mirror someone else needs to finally step out of their own cycle. You were not born to play a role in someone else's broken story. You were not created to be the villain in their drama, the scapegoat of their pain, or the mirror of their shadow. You were born to write your own story, to live with sovereignty, to master your inner world so completely that no insult, no betrayal, no chaos can shake it. The Stoics knew this. And now, so do you. The choice is in your hands. Will you continue to react, to feed their fire? Or will you pause, breathe, and reclaim the peace that has always been yours? The answer begins the moment you decide. I will no longer be a character in someone else's play. I will be the author of my own. And that decision, that single choice, is where your freedom begins. Protect your peace, guard your mind, live untouchable. And join us here at True Stoic Way to keep mastering it.